Good afternoon, folks. Tim with Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with this week's free market wrap and sector watch for next week. Just going to go ahead and get right into it. We'll come back to I can start with the financials, I suppose. Financials, nice little bounce after the Fed meeting this week, even though it was a lot more dovish than I expected it to be. But then we started getting some Fed speak about a potential interest rate hike soon. Interest rate hike would be good for the banks. They've been consolidating between these two areas of support and resistance, and it looks as though, even though we do have a gap here that could potentially fill, it does look as though we want to try and take out the high on FAS, which is the 3-time bull. I think this is something to probably keep an eye on. Just has stochastics cross to the upside. If we break out of there with some conviction, I think we could get a pretty nice run after building this base here in the FAS. But let's go ahead and take a look at the major indexes like the NASDAQ. Had a nice pop up into resistance. Some chatter out there that we could be set up for some type of a pullback because there's so much complacency out there. And now we have all the big tech names that have reported behind us. Amazon was a little disappointing towards the end of the week, but good numbers out of Google and Facebook and Apple, but those are all behind us now. So if the ones that reported good numbers have already gapped, could we get a pullback in the NASDAQ? Absolutely, we could. We are at an area of potential resistance. We'll see what happens next week, but a pullback wouldn't be a big shocker. The question is, where does the money rotate to? And financials could be one of those places. Let's take a look at gold and miners real quick. So gold has been, doing some interesting things lately. Gap up at pre-market in the morning and then pull back, or actually no follow-through after opening. A lot of people getting involved. It's been consolidating in this area. It's having a difficult time with the 100 EMA. If the dollar weakens, then we could see gold break out over the 100, and then it's going to have to contend with the 200-day moving average. GDX also consolidating just below the 200-day. JNUG and Nugget doing pretty much the same thing, consolidating right below the 100 EMA. So if we get a breakdown in the dollar, then potentially we have a trade in gold and some of the gold ETFs, the triple levered ETFs. Let's take a look at the dollar. So the dollar has been in a downtrend for a little while. Some rhetoric coming out of Trump that he almost wanted to devalue the dollar. Some rhetoric coming out about him saying the dollar is way too strong. But it seems to be consolidating and holding on to this 100 EMA. Now, if the dollar does continue to decline, then, like I said, we could see a pop in gold and miners. Let's take a look at oil while I'm here. Oil has had it's consolidating. It's consolidating above all these moving averages. And interestingly, the energy sector hasn't really been following oil. Actually, the energy sector looks a little bit weak. So we'll have to keep an eye on that next week and see if we can actually break out over this trend line here and see if the energy names follow. We do have several energy names reporting earnings next week, so that could provide either some kind of a catalyst, either up or down in the space. Let's take a look at IBB, which telling the pro members over at Alpha Wolf Trading that it would be really nice to see the IBB be one of the sectors that maybe we're rotating into after being beaten down for so long. Now, we have taken out this longer-term trend line. We're above all the short-term moving averages. We're above the 200-day moving average. We've got a nice cluster of moving average support right here. We had this spike. We took out this long-term trend line. We actually consolidated a little bit, and now we got a little bit of follow-through on Friday. But this has been a really beaten down sector that could be coming back to life, and I think ultimately long term that will be good for the markets as well. So coming up into potential resistance here at about 286, let's just call it 286, nice round number. Could be some price resistance there. Wouldn't be surprised if we stalled out, maybe pulled back a little bit, retested this long-term trend line, and maybe retest this cluster of moving averages. But really nice to see some participation out of the biotech space. Let's take a look at IWM, which has been in consolidation mode for basically almost 3 months, right? Between these two areas of support and resistance. 133 is kind of a line in the sand. If we take out 133, could get concerning for the small caps, and 138 is the resistance area above. So let's see what happens next week as we approach that area. If we wind up tapping it and it acts as resistance again and we pull back, or if we finally break through. If we do break through, I think either way we break, the longer the base, the higher the space, or lower the drop. So we do have gaps to fill on this IWM, so that's something always to keep in mind. But looks pretty constructive for right now. Still in consolidation mode. Shorter term moving averages, the 50 is starting, it looks like it's starting to curl. We'll see if it actually winds up curling down. That would be a little bit concerning, but IWM still looks pretty constructive. IYT, actually a sector that's been beaten up recently, just pulled back to the 50 EMA and bounced. Then we broke over this trend line here on Friday. Look for potential continuation in the transportation space. We do have a couple of airlines that are reporting this week. I think Hawaiian Airlines and Save, which is Spirit Airlines, reporting. We'll see if it gets any kind of follow through in transportation. All right, let's take a look at Labu, which coming up into price resistance here at 42 bucks, just over 42. Let's call it 42.50. 42.60. If we can take that out, maybe we get a nice little pop in Labu. If you don't have any names in the IBB that you're really interested in playing, this could be an opportunity here. It is a little overbought, but things can stay overbought for a while, right? So what would be healthier is to see us consolidate here, build up some energy before we try to take out that area of price resistance. Let's take a look at the SMH, which has been, an incredibly strong sector for quite some time. It looks like it wants to continue to be strong. We've got some semiconductors that we'll be reporting this week. We'll see if that can give this SMH enough juice to get a little bit of a pop and keep making new highs, but pretty impressive lower left to upper right. And looks like it wants to go higher. S&P 500, nice consolidation, pressed new highs on Friday. I know that there are people out there calling for a 5 to 10% correction. It could happen, but boy, I got to tell you, I just got done going through a lot of my scans. Boy, there's a lot of really good-looking technical setups out there. And maybe we do get a breakdown. I don't know, but there are some really good technical setups out there. Some black swan event, I guess, could happen, but things look pretty bullish, and this looks pretty bullish as well. It looks like it wants to go higher. Stochastics have just crossed to the upside. We just got a curl here, so I'm thinking maybe we make some new all-time highs next week. T2107 and T2108, this is something we were looking at recently at Alpha Wolf Trading. Over 70, we're overbought, and we are kind of approaching there. This is the amount of stocks that are over the 200-day moving average. T2108 is the amount of stocks over the 40-day moving average. Over 70, you're getting overbought, probably getting a little rich. Need to look at locking in some profits, potentially going short. Things can stay over 70 for a while though. all right, and they can actually get as high up into the 90s. I mean, you can see back here, after we had a really swift sell-off, got all the way back up into the 80s and stayed there for a while. So get underneath 20, and it's a time to start looking to buy, load up. If you get in under 20 in single digits is where you really need to start. It's hard to do because there's a lot of ugly charts out there, but that's where you get really aggressive. Up here is where you start to trim and build some cash, and if you're short, if you like shorting, could be an area to look to take some shorts. But we're kind of like fiddle in the middle right now, so not extremely overdone, and I think that's a good sign that we could head higher. So one of the sectors that has been a very beaten up sector is tan. I'm linking this to oil. If oil continues to rise, if we get some kind of a sharp rise in oil, then I think potentially you could see solar start to rise as well, right? This is a really speculative type trade or thesis. I'm not suggesting to go out and buy a bunch of solars right now. I'm just suggesting could be an interesting sector to keep an eye on for potential sector rotation if we got out of the hot sectors, right? If we start seeing money flow out of tech, maybe we look to go into some place like solar, which has been beaten up. Shippers could be another one as well. All right. Let's see what else we have going on here. TVIX, UVXY, there is no volatility because there is no fear. There is a ton of complacency out there, and that is a big reason as to why so many people think that we could be ready for some kind of a sell-off, some kind of a pullback. But the VIX did spike up to 13, and it has pulled back down to just about 11. This is really low volatility, and it is concerning. So it is worth keeping an eye on it, but I can tell you that there's just no signs of real fear out there right now. So probably not a whole lot of trades there. Aerospace and defense, nice pop on Friday, closed nearly at the high of the day. After a long consolidation period, basically from November all the way until now, right? We've had a big consolidation area, and it looks like we're just starting to break out to the upside. So aerospace defense could be a sector to keep an eye on. There's one stock in particular that I like, actually, that we've been watching over at Alpha Wolf Trading, and it made the watch list again for the pro members. So looking like maybe that one could be in play. There's actually a couple of aerospace defense names on this week's watch list for the pro members. Let's see. XBI. Biotech, we already talked about it. Looking good. At a place of potential price resistance. We'll see how it acts next week. XHB, you've been wanting this to break down, but it won't. It just won't. See, what I want and what happens really doesn't matter to the market, right? What I want doesn't matter. I would like to see this break down. I'd like to see the home builders sell off before the spring season, because there's a couple of names in that space that I'd like to take in my long-term hold account, but it is really being stubborn, holding above this 200-day moving average and messing around with this whole cluster of moving averages here. Stochastic's just getting ready to cross to the upside. May not get that pullback that I want, so actually holding up fairly well. Materials sector consolidating, right? Pretty nice indecision candle there on Friday. Pierced the upper Bollinger Band, pull back, consolidating. Several names in the space. Names like U.S. Steel, AK Steel. There's a couple other steel names that I like out there. GGB, SID. I think that whole space is actually looking fairly interesting, worth keeping an eye on. If any of these infrastructure plays that were, have been talked about actually start to come to fruition, or a plan comes to fruition to start really doing some of these infrastructure plays. I think you're going to see materials continue to do well. Energy, XLE, so it did have a little bit of a bounce. Going to be tied to oil. We'll see what we'll see. Oil was bouncing a little bit, and actually XLE was pulling back. But we'll see what they do next week. Financials we already discussed. Industrials pierced the upper Bollinger Band, pulled back to this trend line as support, bounced off, now above the 50 SMA. See if it could take out $64 next week. XLU, so utilities have been consolidating between these 2 points of support and resistance, and we're actually looking at the 200-day moving average, which has really been acting as good resistance. Has come up and tapped us several times, right? Once, twice, 3 times. Here we are, looking like we're going to tap it again. Rising interest rate environment, typically not good for utilities, but it really is holding up fairly well. And there are actually a couple of utility names in my scans that look pretty good this week as well. So kind of interesting what's happening there with the utilities. If it takes out the 200-day with some conviction, maybe get a nice little move there in utilities. Healthcare, just like the biotech, nice to see healthcare actually close above the 200-day on Friday. Talking to the pro members during the market wraps during the week, when we came up here and found some resistance at that 200-day, really what I wanted to see was I would have liked to have seen us continue to consolidate in a really tight range just below this 200-day moving average. We actually broke out a little bit over it on Friday. Would have been, I think, healthier if we would have consolidated a bit, built the base, but still nice to see. And again, this could be one of those sectors that money flows into after being beaten down for so long. We'll see what happens with it. Likely going to have some resistance somewhere around $72. It is overbought as well. So stochastics overbought, but good for the markets long term if this sector can start to come back with some vengeance, right? Consumer discretionary, pretty impressive, has held up. We broke out over, so we were basically bouncing between these 2 areas of price resistance and support. We finally broke over the resistance, pulling back, trying to see if this can now act as support. What was resistance, act as support. Held up fairly well on Friday, even though Chipotle Mexican Grill had pretty horrific earnings. So pretty impressive. We'll see if consumer discretionary can continue to hold up here. Let's see, metals and mining, consolidating. Oil and gas production had a little bit of a bounce on Friday. Stochastics have curled to the upside. If be tied to oil, we'll see what oil does next week. And then XRT, my least favorite sector in the space, but interestingly enough, I think it was either fast money or one of them, fast money or options action. Several of the traders kind of drawn to the retail space. The Macy's thing, potential buyout candidate was announced, I think, on Friday. That got the space a little bit of a bounce. I don't like trading retail. I just don't. But there are probably some names in there that could be compelling. I think Coors comes out with some earnings this week. That could be interesting. The one name that I am, watching pretty closely is UAA, Under Armour. I actually think this can go quite a bit lower, but I am watching it. I mean, if it got down into the $16 area, I think it becomes extremely compelling down there. There's analysts that came out and put, I think, a $14 price target on it. So, somewhere around $15, $70, $16. For my long-term hold account, my IRA, this one could be rather compelling. I mean, it's not a cheap stock. It's, it may be, have a lower price, but it certainly does not trade at a cheap multiple. So worth keeping an eye on, but need to be, I think, patient on it before you get involved. Anyway, that is my stocks to watch and sector, or not stocks to watch, but market wrap and sector watch for this week. I will be back tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Las Vegas time, for this week's free stocks to watch for next week. Going to do something a little bit different too. Going to be primarily focused on all companies that have earnings coming up next week and have decent technical setup. So that's what's going to be the focus tomorrow. If you like what I do here, come check us out over at alphawolftrading.com. We've got a very reasonable membership program, 3 different offerings. Check us out. I mean, the goal with Alpha Wolf Trading is to help people become better traders and build a great community of good people that really want to learn and not just follow. All right, I will see you all tomorrow morning, or see some of you tomorrow morning. The rest of you I'll see next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I'm pulling for the Falcons, baby. I know. I'd probably make a lot of people angry by saying that, but I'm pulling from the Falcons. My dad lives in Georgia. I got to do it, and I'm just not a big, Patriots fan. So, all right. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I'll see you all tomorrow. See some of you tomorrow.